Aloha, everyone, in another level living land. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Freedom Fridays. So happy that you're here because we have an amazing special guest who's going to share with us some beautiful wisdom on healing trauma and attracting a beautiful life. So before I introduce her and let you know about how amazing she is and bring her on to talk about this amazing topic, I want to share with you what is the purpose of this show. The purpose of the Freedom Friday show is to support you as an entrepreneur in achieving your success in business and life harmony, because it really is two sides of the same coin. We never want to get so busy making a living that we forget to make a life. And it is possible to work smarter, not harder, stress less, strengthen our relationships, lead with much more energy, ease, and momentum. And my personal favorite, how to increase your calm, your confidence, and your cash flow with much more ease, grace, and fun. Let's bring the purpose more back and the passion more back into the purpose, and that leads to the prosperity. If you want to learn more about that, make sure you grab your 7 secrets towards more business and life harmony. You can get that right on our website, anotherlevelliving.com. Okay, so let's get into it. I want you to give a warm welcome to our amazing special guest, Rena. Caroline, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely, Heather. I'm really excited about this, and I think this is going to be a good time because we've proven that already in other conversations that we've had.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Let them know a little bit more about you, okay?
Okay.
So, Caroline is a seasoned trauma informed transformational coach, spiritual guide, writer, podcaster, and Army veteran dedicated to supporting individuals in their healing journey through trauma and grief. She has 35 years of lived experience, and she has navigated through her own path of childhood trauma, military sexual trauma and harassment, generational Holocaust trauma, and also parental alienation. She was an Army brat and an Army spouse, as well as have been in the Army for 8 years herself. Now, in her own transformational journey, she has empowered her to integrate her innate gifts and expertise into her work today. It is so important to release anxiety, overwhelm, and ingrained unconscious belief systems, addressing trauma stored in our nervous system. She also has a podcast called Awakening Divinity Soul, where she has powerful conversations with a diverse array of guests, from healing experts to guides. And you also want to make sure that you subscribe to her amazing YouTube channel. We're going to put all the links to the beautiful gifts and everything for Caroline in the show notes below. So make sure you access those. So Caroline, thank you so much again for being here today. This is a huge topic, like especially right now, right?
Yeah, because there's so many people going through trauma, and it's not just this immediacy of the trauma that's happening right now. This is generations of trauma. This is decades of trauma. This is, this just even this what do you call it? The last 5 years have been full of trauma. So, and most people don't even realize they're in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was actually that probably leads into the first question I was going to ask you is, why is this topic of healing trauma and attracting a beautiful life? Why is this something that's so important?
Well, because we're not put on this planet to be miserable. We're put on this planet to be joyful and enjoy our life and be who we are and discover our truth and connect that truth with the things that we do in life and bring out the possibilities first for ourselves and then for others. And it's almost like a lighthouse. I always connect it back to a lighthouse. When you shine your light, when I shine my light, the bugs are more attracted to light than they are to darkness, but it's the good bugs. It's the cute bugs.
Bugs.
Yeah. So it's so important to be that truth, that expansion, and to heal the trauma, to get to the point where you are that creates just so much beauty and so many things that you don't even really fully realize until it starts happening. It's almost like the law of attraction. I didn't believe it throughout the entire time I was going through my healing process. And then when I finally started working on my nervous system and I finally started clearing all these energies, these stacked energies from years and years and years of the trauma, that I started to realize, hey, this actually works. And I didn't really do anything. It was once the energy was released, things just started showing up in my life. And it was like, oh, it does work. Wow, they weren't lying.
Well, it's interesting, right? I appreciate that because as you were talking, I'm thinking about like how, it's really peeling off the layers to get of like an onion to get to the core of who you are. And then your light is able to shine much brighter and more effortlessly once all that unconscious weight is kind of out of the way that we don't even know is there.
Yeah, yeah. And
Well, oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's funny you brought up the onion because I remember while I was going through this years ago, I actually cut a red onion in half.
Uh-huh.
And inside the onion, because it was red, there was a heart. And
Oh,
I was like, oh, okay.
that's so
Oh, cool. I know it was, but little things like that helped me along my way, just paying
good.
attention to those little things.
I love this. I love this. It's interesting, this question popped up, but a lot of people, like you said, they don't know what trauma is, or maybe they've experienced it and they may not be aware of it. But like from your definition or perspective, what is trauma and what are some of the signs that you may know that you got some?
Okay, well, that's a big one. And
Let's
I'll do
go
my
big
best to
picture.
answer it small.
Okay.
So trauma isn't something, well, two things. Trauma is not something that happens to you. It happens for you. That's kind of the esoteric version of it, which is just we come into this life. It's almost like I feel, from my perspective, I feel we choose this life and we have these opportunities, what I call them, to bring us closer back into ourselves and find that truth and that self-love. So anything that happens outside of us is only a reflection of how we feel inside of us. So that's that kind of esoteric version of it. Now, the coursework in trauma informed, from what I learned, is that when you experience a trauma in your life, what happens, and the result happens in the mind and the body. We think it's all mind. And we focus on the cognitive work, which I did most of my life until I realized, I'm watching myself. I understand. I'm analytical. I see myself, you know, I'm healing. I know what's going on. And then something happens and I'm like, oh my God, I can't take that. Oh, and my whole body just starts to freak out. And so I started to recognize that. And when I saw that, I was like, well, why do I understand that I'm okay here and my body's still going crazy? Right. And so basically what that is your nervous system reacting in a stress response, fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn. Now we've got the fawn thing going on. And it literally, hypothetically, let's say you were bullied in elementary school. And this kid walks up to you and starts calling you names and telling you how terrible you are and all these different things. Well, as a child, especially, we don't know how to respond to that because 9 times out of 10, most of us are not told how to do it. And in many cases, we don't have the ability or the capacity to really understand what's going on, unless we have a family that gets it, but most of us with generational trauma, we didn't get that. So, right. So what happens is we have this thing happening right in front of us and we don't know what to do, and our body reacts to it to protect us. Our ego protects us. Everything is, we're going into protection mode. Should I freeze so I don't get eaten by this bully, or should I run, or should I, what am I supposed to do? And because you don't know what to do, it's a loop. It's actually a loop that does not ever close. So that energy of whatever you're feeling in that moment, whether it's anger or fear or shame or sadness or whatever, it gets stuck inside of your nervous system. And until you actually do the releasing, like let's, again, hypothetically, let's say this kid never ran, but that was the best thing that they could have done, but they didn't know, or they were afraid, or they thought the bully was going to chase them or whatever, you know? And so the loop doesn't close. So as we get older, we have similar situations that remind us of that situation. And that little child in us that's at that particular age, say 6, continues to run our life until we pay attention to that child and start to connect with that child and start to heal the connection with that child. And then integrate. And then once that happens, then we are able to live our lives not from a 6-year-old state, which is how we tend to react to whatever age we got stuck. And we can actually come online, which is what I call it, and make decisions as an adult, you know. And it's so important that we that we're aware of that, so we know that it's okay. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that, you know, you're this terrible person or whatever. It just means that you experienced something in your life that didn't that wasn't loving, that wasn't caring, that wasn't somebody just had their own stuff going on and they spewed it out all over you, and now here it is, you know. So that's basically in a nutshell what that's about.
What a beautiful explanation. There were so many messages in that. Like, as you were talking, is that part about, first of all, we talked about the law of attraction briefly, like in a few minutes before this conversation. And what happens is we don't attract, the truth is we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. So that part about this bully experience, okay, it never got resolved. There was never a learning or a message in there. And then we grow up and we have all these other experiences to remind us of that one. Is actually the pattern continues until we interrupt the pattern, figure out what happened, and be able to heal that even from the inside. Right? So all of our challenges externally, they got something, they're a reflection of what's going on internally, like you mentioned, which, how powerful and how important is that? I want y'all to think about, my fellow entrepreneurs. We're talking about business and life harmony. Okay, running your business, being your own boss. Okay, that got some challenges. There's some external chaos where there's a message in the mess. You figure out what the message is, then you get clear, you don't experience the mess. Think about the life side and relationships. Oh my goodness, how much can this awareness of what this is can help us break free from blaming and complaining and pointing the finger at other people? Oh my goodness. How much more peaceful would it be if people would have that introspective? So, like, now that we got clear on what trauma is, why is this topic is important, what are a couple things that we can do right now to start being able to think about how to heal our trauma and actually attract that beautiful life that we want?
Well, one of the biggest things that we have a hard time doing is to recognize that the blame doesn't work. If you haven't figured that out already, at some point you will figure it out. We can't blame everyone outside of us indefinitely, because 9 times out of 10, they weren't even in our lives when all the stuff happened, right? So moving into a space of, you know, first of all, well, let's start with the recognizing the trauma. So when you see something going on outside of you, generally it's a reflection of what's happening inside, like you had mentioned a couple minutes ago. And if you're seeing this, it took a lot for me to learn this. It was the hard way. It was very difficult for me to get it until I got it. Okay. But if something is going on outside of you, one of the most important things that you can do if you choose to heal is to watch what's happening and go, where do I do that in my life? because we all have the potential to do things that we don't like. That's usually why we don't like it, right? Or there's other reasons for that. But how can I look at this differently? How can I look at it from another angle? Something came up the other day for me. It was how do I look at it through someone else's eyes to see potentially what's happening here? But being able to stop yourself long enough to recognize this and take responsibility for your healing is where this piece of it connects in so deeply with your truth, because that is your truth. It shows the love. It shows the love that you want for yourself. It shows the love that you want for other people. And it brings you to the point of making, I used to have a mantra. It was be willing, be create. Hold on. I used to have a mantra. It was be willing, be courageous, be free. There's a willingness you have that you're bound and determined. And that was me. I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired, and people just, I felt like people were beating down on me and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, it's them. It's them. It's not, nope, I had nothing to do with it. Right. And at one point it got to a place where it was, I had to be willing and persistent and consistent with my work in healing myself in order to break through all of that. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. However, if you really, really, really want something, what are you going to do? You know? And then the other piece that was really important was, it's not even about being willing necessarily at the get-go. It's about making a choice. And we all have choice, and no one can take that choice away from us. And if you haven't heard it yet, not making a choice is a choice. So you have a whole bunch of options here. And these are things that you can take advantage of when you choose. So I hope that answered the question.
No, that was totally great. You know, it was one of those things where, where do I begin with that? Because a lot of times it's that introspect. So a lot of times you get to that part where all the blaming or all this is them, and you recognize, what am I? What am I? I'm the common denominator. Okay, cool. Well, then if I change, when you change and when your inner world, then it's easy to master the outer world. And it was, as you were talking, what it highlighted for me, or maybe for the audience as well, I talk about emotional intelligence. In one of our trainings, we talk about emotional intelligence, and we can't control. The biggest thing is we can't control what's happening externally. We can control how we respond. And that's where our greatest response power is in our response. So in that reflection piece that you had said, okay, what is going on? That's where you recognize, okay, how am I going to appropriately respond? I would even add, like, okay, cool, where did this come from? Like, get curious even in your mind. Where did this come from? Because one of the things about the mind and trauma is it loves to stuff down and block out trauma as if it never happened, to preserve and keep your body safe.
Right.
Right. So we want to change that. So amazing tip. Amazing.
Can I add something to that? Because
Sure, go ahead.
Do you know how things pop in your mind?
Yeah,
it does.
That's why this is an awesome conversation.
Yeah, right. And so what's interesting about us as humans is we have control of ourselves. We don't have control out here. This is beyond us. And one thing that I learned, that I remember, this was many years ago, I remember, if you stick your arms out and you spin in a circle, where the tips of your finger is, that's how much you have that you can control. It's called locus of control if you want to look it up. But basically, it's about controlling or settling into your own emotions, to understand your own emotions and why you are reacting to whatever's happening, to flip it, to be able to respond to what's happening. And then the second piece, when you start to do this, and this was part of something that we had said earlier, it was like, people come into our lives for certain reasons or seasons or whatever this is. When you do your own work and you're walking through life, and it can get scary because people will start, they're either going to join you and stick with you, or they're going to leave. And it's actually not a bad thing, because it allows us to start to see our truth. If those people aren't in our face and triggering us and doing all these things, and that's not a blame statement, that's just something that's going on, and we're able to just see what's happening, and we know that this isn't good for us, then we also get to take responsibility for that, and we get to train ourselves to set our boundaries. So there's like a whole lot of stuff that goes on in here with being traumatized or having been traumatized, and how to create that safety for yourself.
Nice. Oh, so good. So good. Well, how can we continue on this conversation and this journey? Do you have like a free gift that you can be able to offer us so therefore we can get to know you a little more?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing with the free gift, it's an inner child meditation. So basically, everything in our lives, for the most part, goes back to our inner children, our inner selves. We have these things that went on in our life, like I said, that sometimes we totally disconnect from our inner child. And so this meditation that I share is something that will help you to connect to your inner child. Like what I do when I'm starting to go through something or whatever, and everything's going, whatever. This is my thing. My tool is I will put my hands on my heart and close my eyes and connect with my little girl and just start taking deep breaths and telling her it's okay. We're going to get through this. So basically, that's what this meditation will do. So it's an inner child meditation, and it just goes through how to connect with your little boy or your little girl. And it just helps you to, and that, which is the most important thing. The connection with that inner child is so, so, so vital to the healing process. So that's why I usually start with that
Nice.
connection. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, we're going to make sure that we put those links in the show notes. So make sure you click that link and get your inner child meditation. Wow. Based on everything that you shared with us, Caroline, what would be the biggest takeaway that you want to leave us with today?
Well, I think since you brought up the podcast, I feel that, and the podcast is Awakening Soul Divinity. So there's an awakening piece that's happening right now. And I feel like it's so vital for us to pay attention. We're not awakening our soul. Our soul's already awake. Our divinity's already awake. We just haven't connected with it. So the awakening piece of working through connecting with yourself, finding your truth, recognizing that you are so expansive and so big. Even when we feel like this, that's not the truth. Our truth is love. Our truth is joy. Our truth is expansiveness, and our truth is connection. So when you think about your awakening, you're awakening to your humanness. You're learning who you are as a human, and you are connecting with that truth as a human, so you can see and be that soul divinity that you truly are. So I think that's it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So amazing. We're awakening. Oh, you just took us to a whole nother level, Caroline. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
Everyone who's in another level living land, I want you to put your comments, your biggest takeaway of Caroline's message in the comments below. And also, if you've been given this gift of positivity and the ability to be able to step in and amplify the law of attraction, releasing what was, stepping into all that is, make sure you share out this video. Sharing is caring. So if you've been inspired by this message, go ahead and share it out to give someone else the gift of positivity. Caroline, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. And I hope you all have a wonderful, beautiful time going through this, and make sure that you keep your support going, because we're all here for you.
Yes, and yay. Oh, everyone, another level living land. Let this message marinate into your mind, body, and soul, and so that you can step into the most amazing and best version of you. It is totally possible. You don't have to have a great past to have a great future, and you get to recreate and restore yourself each and every day. And let this be an awesome first step in doing so. Look forward to seeing you again. Bye,
Okay.
everyone.